Backyard Farmer is a co-production of NET Television and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Extension. Tonight on Backyard Farmer, we'll focus on container combinations for the fall and check out a miniature garden. That's all coming up next, right here on Backyard Farmer.
Again, and welcome to another episode of Backyard Farmer. I'm Kim Todd, and I'll be your host for the next hour of good gardening. Joining me on the panel tonight, we have experts from the University of Nebraska Extension and Landscape Services. Answering our insect questions, we have Michael Rethwish. We have Lowell Sandell. Doing all those weed questions, no turf, right?
No, the weeds.
Kevin Corus, rots and spots.
Hello, hello.
And Jeff Culbertson, all those horticulture questions.
Glad to be here, Kim.
You know, we'd love to hear from you as well. Just dial 402-472-1212 if you live in Lincoln. Our toll-free number is 800-676-5446. You can also send us a question or picture via email to byf@unl.edu. We answer those questions on future shows. Please do include your location. It makes a big difference. And do that if you send us an email or use your phone or whatever. Also keep in mind that we can't get to everybody's question on the air, so if you really need further assistance, visit with your local extension educator. Go to the Backyard Farmer website. We always like to start with samples, and Michael, I know yours is attempting to escape the studio.
Well, we can't say we're not live. What we have here tonight are some linden leaves or basswood leaves, and we can see that they are not looking too pretty here, and you can see they're kind of lacy, things like that. And our cause of the problem here of the laciness is an insect called the basswood leaf miner. This is a small beetle, and it chews as the adult into the leaves. And the reason it's called a leaf miner is the eggs are laid into the leaf, and the larval stages are developing in the leaf, which is why we have it as the basswood leaf miner. Sometimes the adults can really make these things really look lacy, and you get that in combination with the mining can really tear up some of these leaves. And if that wasn't enough, we're actually having some double trouble with another insect on linden, and this is the linden aphid. And right now it doesn't look too bad right here, but in Butler County this has probably been our biggest call lately. We're having some high numbers of this particular insect. Some of the limbs and things are being sucked dry, and we are seeing in some places, we're seeing lots and lots of Asian multicolored lady beetles coming to the rescue, which means homeowners will not like it this fall.
So one way or the other, you either have things eating your trees or you have insects in your office.
It's one way or the other.
All right, thank you, Michael. All right, Lowell, that is a Bitsy sample.
Yeah. So what I brought in is thinking about next year already. So we're sitting here about the 1st of September, and every spring when we start this show, we get lots of calls on henbit and some of the other winter annual weeds. And around the greenhouse, I pulled up a couple little henbit plants that germinated probably about a week ago. And over the next, probably 4 weeks, you'll see a lot of the winter annual weeds that we deal with in turf and landscapes really germinating and growing. And in the spring, we always say, well, there's not that much you can do about it, just mow it. Probably about 6 to 8 weeks from now is an absolutely ideal time to spray a growth regulator 2,4-D type of herbicide to control henbit out there. If you had henbit this year, plan on getting control of it here probably about a month and a half.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Lowell. All right, Kevin, a follow-up to something we talked about last week, I think.
Yeah, last week we had a picture of a bur oak tree that wasn't doing too well, and it had some brown leaves. And so I have some leaves here that got sent to me in the clinic that are displaying symptoms that could be several different things, to be honest. But what we notice is that there's an area that's dead and there's an area that's alive, and that is delineated by a leaf vein. So there are several different things that can do this. Abiotic factors, just like nutrient stress or root wounding, can do this. But there are a couple different diseases as well. One is a foliar disease called bur oak blight, or BOB, as I like to call it. And the other one is a fungal disease that's systemic, that gets in to the trunk and the branches of the tree, and that's called oak wilt. So it's important to diagnose a tree that's showing these symptoms, because you don't, if you have other bur oaks in the area, you don't want a fungal pathogen to spread. So this actually happens to be bur oak blight. I found the spores indicative of that particular disease. For this particular disease, if you do have it, we usually recommend getting rid of the leaf litter, which is important, but this particular disease puts spores onto the petioles, which sometimes remain on the tree. So it's kind of, there's nothing really you can do. You can't get rid of those petioles. So they're researching some fungicides for control. At this point, I don't have anything to recommend. They don't have anything to recommend, but it's maybe a good idea to get it diagnosed. Like I said, just if it is a fungal pathogen, you might want to think about taking care of that tree, which sometimes unfortunately means cutting it down so that some of these pathogens don't move to other trees in the area.
So point out the petiole right quick.
Okay, well, these leaves still have their petiole, but this is the petiole, which is if we can get a zoom in, yeah, the small stem-like structure that actually connects it to the real stem, and that's the petiole. And the fungus of bur oak blight will produce spores on that particular part, and sometimes they remain on the tree.
Gotcha, right attached to the branch.
Exactly, just you'll see little stems coming out of the branch.
Excellent, thank you, Kevin. All right, Jeff, wonderful native.
Yeah, I have Ceanothus New Jersey tea here, and so it's a nice little native perennial flower. It flowers kind of a white creamy flower early in the spring. Not real showy. I was commenting earlier, it's not quite like spirea or anything. But then it has these nice black seeds on it. They kind of turn from a kind of a white and crimson to this black. So it's very hardy. It does well. I have it in my yard in kind of a hot spot, and so it does very well there. And you know, it's something that you might want to try, a nice alternative. As far as the tea part, I think during the Revolutionary War they tried it, you know, like all those things with names, with coffee this and tea that. I don't think it was actually delicious or anything, but so
but it did the job.
Hence we don't have it in the grocery store at Hy-Vee now, right? But anyway, that was one of their substitutes. So
excellent. We have one in the Backyard Farmer Garden, and it's been doing really quite well. So great native plant, New Jersey tea. Mm-hmm. All right, Michael, you get the first picture. We do not know where this particular viewer is, but she has caterpillars on her dill, and they have something attached to them. So our viewers can probably see that yellow thing on the soft underbelly. What's going on there?
I can't tell 100% from this picture, but I suspect what we have there is a wasp cocoon. It has probably, an egg was laid into the caterpillar. It ate the insides of the caterpillar, killed the caterpillar, and now the wasp has come out and pupated, and there'll be a wasp, I suspect, coming out of this.
In other words, no more caterpillar, and yes, indeed, a wasp.
Yes.
Okay, anything you can do about it, or?
Enjoy it.
Which is no doubt not what she wants to hear, but you're right. All right, Lowell, this is a viewer in Lincoln. They had this plant self-seed into the foundation of their house, and they don't have any idea what it might be. Okay.
I don't know the specific name of this, but we do know it is a Euphorbiaceae species. You can tell actually from, it's tough to look on that picture, but right up there where in the center of the leaves, you can see the seed pods on that, and it's very distinctly a Euphorbiaceae species, probably an annual. If it's an annual and it's been there a couple of years, there's seed in the soil, it'll come back next year. But if they don't want it, just pull it out, and it didn't look like there was very many of them there. But it's something in the Euphorb family.
All right, and for those of you who don't know what that is Poinsettia family. Okay. So same thing, so there's the similarity. All right, Kevin, your first image is a North Platte viewer. These began showing up in the lawn probably mid-August. It's a great picture, about 4 inches around, Came after a hailstorm, then they thought it might be dollar spot, red-brown line, then all this fuzz going on. So what is it?
Yeah, I think they're right. It does look like dollar spot. That particular fungus, it's a sclerotinia, will produce mycelium, that's the fuzzy stuff you're seeing, on those lesions, and the way they describe the lesions makes it sound like that too. North Platte's probably been the same. It's been relatively cool and wet, so we're having some of these diseases persist. The important thing is that we try not to mow or drag any equipment over the lawn when it's wet. That'll help spread that fungus to other parts that aren't affected in the lawn, so you want to avoid those things. In terms of a fungicide, in the home landscape, I don't think there's anything at this point that would really benefit. A lot of them are protective type fungicides, so I might be wrong on that, Lowell, but...
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right, hope it gets dry, huh?
Yeah, hot and dry is our friend when it comes to that.
All right, thank you. Another plant, and this one I think probably a little bit more ornamental, Jeff. This is a viewer who got this at a garage sale with no label. It's now about 4 feet tall, and some of the leaves are beginning to go into those beautiful colors. She wants to know what it is, and is it annual or perennial?
Well, it's an annual. It's Amaranthus. And Amaranthus is a very large family. There's lots of different choices within that plant, but it looks like, you know, one of those that obviously like a tricolor Amaranthus. And, you know, theoretically, I haven't eaten them, but they're used in Asian cooking quite a bit. So I guess you can try it and see how it goes. Good luck.
And on that note, no recipes.
Yeah.
Well, fall is right around the corner, and even though the growing season will end soon, you still have some colorful options for your containers. For our first feature tonight, we're going to focus on making good container choices for both the pot and the plant. To start thinking about changing out your containers for fall, and we start by looking at the scale of the space, the scale of the container, and the scale of the user. Let's take a look at some smaller containers and some of the plants you could use for fall. Shiny, colorful glazes on some of our containers give us some great options for fall. You could choose one of the big hibiscus, and then you've got that Go Big Red thing going with a black container. If that's a little bit too much on the football side for you, think about one of our unusual annuals like the celosia. Add to it one of the grasses, and you've got a great combination for fall that's maybe a little bit different. If that really isn't to your taste, you can be maybe a little bit more traditional. You could choose a shrub. Again, the shrubs can go into the ground before the ground freezes, so you're really not wasting money or time on annuals. You have something that will actually contribute to the landscape. Tiger Eye Sumac is a great, beautiful chartreuse color. If you think about putting that in a container that's either the deep orange or even the chartreuse itself, you have an unusual combination, and then this actually turns orange, which gives you even more color for the fall. Another shrub that's unusual is one of the hypericums. And the beauty of this is the berries just become more and more orange as the fall continues. Again, this is a plant that has to go into the ground before the ground freezes. The grasses, of course, offer all sorts of options, whether they're the rushes or some of our grasses like the switch grasses. They give that great fine fall texture. They really go with almost any plant in any container. And again, the dull surfaces of the leaf blades give you a different sort of an appearance with the fine, shiny glaze of the container. We also have some of the more vertical shrubs, and this one is actually one of the new barberries. It's kind of a deep, incredibly beautiful dark burgundy color with a little bit of a gold edge to it. Looks great with the chartreuse, can go in the landscape and contribute even longer into the autumn of the year. If you really want traditional, or you just want a really great pop of color for fall, choose something that's already planted with annuals like zinnias and the celosia. If you keep those pinched back, you'll get a lot of fall color for really not a very large investment. And then of course you don't have to worry about it over the winter months. Again, it looks great with plant combinations and color combinations with the containers that pick up on something that you've already used, whether it's the red or the chartreuse. You could use a gold pot. It would actually even look great in black, and that would really make these colors shine. The more traditional approach, of course, is to use the asters, the fall blooming asters that are not hardy, but great color combinations. Or if you want to get ready for Halloween, get one of the fabulous cushion mums, tuck it into a container, and let it bloom its little heart out. One thing we've repeated over and over on Backyard Farmer is that these sorts of choices are totally up to your imagination. But if you really understand a little bit about how color works, that will help you make better choices that you're going to like for both that pot and that plant. And again, color is one of those things that is very subjective. So people love it or they hate it. All right, Michael, you get the next picture. Okay. This is an insect that got found on a sidewalk. And I think Fred had a baggie of these the other week too, and he didn't show them. So what do you think this is?
This is a Colorado potato beetle. And even if they don't have potatoes around, they will eat other things in the family. It actually will feed on buffalo burr. We'll find a lot of times feeding on buffalo burr in addition to potatoes.
All right, so how do they control it if they don't want it on their potatoes?
A lot of times pick it off, but there are sprays they can use too.
All right, excellent, thank you. Lowell.
Yes.
I love the way this viewer started this question, which is, short of a nuclear holocaust, how do we get rid of wild onion or wild garlic? Flat, solid foliage. They try to keep it from going to seed. They think they're fighting a losing battle. They also worry a bit about its toxicity to pets.
Yeah, okay. I'd prefer the nuclear holocaust to try and get rid of it. However, this is wild onion, and it's a perennial. It's very difficult to control. So, you know, they had talked about seed and stuff like that. The bigger deal is the bulbs and the roots down in the soil. And because of that, we're probably looking at being very persistent with applications of 2,4-D and growth regulator herbicides, both in the spring and in the fall. And you know, I've talked many times about being really persistent with perennial weeds. One application isn't going to take care of it. You're going to need repeated applications, probably over 2 to 3 years, to really kind of knock those plants back or out of the landscape.
Or 15 or 20 if they have colonized in the edges of your gravel driveway, as I speak from experience on that one. All right, Kevin, we have a hardy aster question. Shot up tall this summer and then turned brown. We suspect this is the one called Purple Dome, which we have on campus, and a lot of people have it. New growth on all the plants, so they haven't cut them back, and they're wondering what will happen. Will they flower? But they also wonder, is there anything they can do? What is it, and is there anything they think they can do to keep this from happening next year?
To be honest, I'm not sure what it is, but this particular aster has a problem with doing this. It typically does flower. It's just unsightly and it's very difficult to manage. We know it's not an insect, but not sure exactly if it is a fungus or which fungus, but it's kind of known for doing this type of thing. So you might need to plant something to kind of cover the lower foliage in front of it, and then rely on the flowering to kind of show above whatever maybe you plant in front of it. But you know, management is difficult. It's one of those plants that likes a moist soil, but it likes it well drained. So it doesn't like standing water. It doesn't want its feet completely wet, but kind of, you know, just a moist but well drained. It's a difficult requirement in the landscape. So.
Okay, and Jeff, I know we have it on campus. Is there anything you do?
Yeah, you know, I would say maybe in that spot, and they didn't mention if they'd done a lot of overhead irrigation. You know, if it had been dry. We came through a couple hot dry weeks, so, you know, that would be one thing. Maybe next year think about how you're watering those particular plants, like we do a lot of things, and maybe look at watering at the base or using a soaker hose or something a little different. Try that. That may help.
All right, excellent. Since you're a potato guy, here's a potato question from Sargent, Nebraska. This is actually a 2013 potato.
Yes.
Kept it in the cellar. She hauled it out and found weirdness.
Something unnatural.
Something unnatural. It has become an alien object in her cellar.
You know, and looking at that, having grown lots of potatoes, what I suspect happened is, especially since it's sat in the cellar a long time, is that a sprout started developing and probably growing on the decaying organic matter of the previous potato. So I don't think it's anything to be too alarmed about. I wouldn't eat it personally, but I think I'd move to something else in the box of potatoes. So.
All right, but nothing that is going to take over the basement.
I don't think so, no,
Okay.
unless it develops legs.
All right, black leg, right. All right, for this week's Green and Growing tip, we did want to give you some tips on fall weed control. So here's our turf grass specialist, Zach Riker, to tell us more.
One of the best ways to reduce inputs in your yard is to maximize the efficacy of any applications that you make. And so fall is a perfect time of the year to fertilize your lawns and control broadleaf weeds. Weeds that you see in the spring and the summer, like dandelion, clover, are best controlled in the fall of the year with simple applications of some kind of a three-way herbicide that usually includes 2,4-D, MCPP, and dicamba. Make these applications sometime in middle of September to late September, all the way through probably mid-October, and these applications are very, very effective. They control perennial weeds, and those weeds are perennial so that they're all year long, and they're there in the fall. You don't realize they're there in the fall, but they are there in the fall. They're there accepting or absorbing the herbicide, and they might not die right away, but they'll die over the winter, and then come next spring, your lawn will be virtually weed-free of broadleaf weeds like dandelion and clover.
As Lowell also mentioned, every spring we get a ton of questions about how to control common broadleaf weeds. There's your answer. Sock them in the fall. All right. This is a Clarkson viewer, Michael. They're saying they have winged ants in the lawn, and they've noticed some holes also. Any idea what those might be, and are they harmful?
There's lots of different species of ants out there, and when they get to a certain point, they will form wings, and these will be the reproductives. It'll be the kings and the queens. They'll be flying to start a new colony. Without seeing the ant, it's hard to say what species it is. The fact that it's in the lawn, I don't think it's going to be harmful to anything, but
It's the time of year.
it's that time of year, yes.
All right, excellent. Tree question for Weed Guy.
Okay, all right.
This is honey locust behind the house. The house was built into a hill. The trees are holding the soil, but they're becoming spindly. And when they remove one of the trees, so I'm wondering if maybe it was either a colony of locust or even black locust. So they're removing them, and then of course they sucker all over the place.
Okay,
So
okay.
they're wondering how they can control the spread of the suckers so that they can end up with decent trees without tordon translocating back into the trunk.
I don't think they can do that, unfortunately. The only way that they're going to really control the suckers is with chemical application. The unfortunate reality is the things that work on a lot of tree species like tordon are also going to injure the tree that they want there. So other than removal of that tree and killing those and then replanting into that area, do you have any suggestions for a situation like that?
Yeah, I really don't. I mean, you're right with the chemical applications. I mean, it's if there's a lot of surface roots certainly going in, and cutting those out will help reduce that. So reducing that root that is in there right now that's, keeping things going. But it could be tough if they were big trees.
Yeah, especially if they're holding soil in place. If they need to get rid of it to start over, they want to do something to stabilize the soil if they're going to start over on that.
Exactly. All right, thanks guys. Kevin, this is an acreage outside of Lincoln, 30 fruit trees, apples and peaches. Fruit appears to be rotting on the inside, no apparent insect damage, no apparent disease on the outside. They did spray a couple of times. They don't see anything on the foliage. So are you familiar with any diseases that would be around the pith that start with you, or do they start with?
I really don't. Yeah, nothing comes to mind that would start on the inside of the fruit. And they said apple and pear?
Apple and peach.
And peach.
Yeah, so
Not really. Everything, you know, there's no, I don't think of any systemic fungus or anything like that that gets into the fruit and then starts rotting from the inside out. A lot of it is from the outside in. I would highly suggest sending in a sample on that. That seems to be more of a developmental problem of some sort.
Yeah.
Or there's an insect and they just haven't seen it.
Right, exactly. It went down from the top or came up from the bottom. So if they could send us a picture of that one, maybe we can take a look at that one for next week. All right. Jeff, we have a viewer in Champion, Nebraska, so southwest corner. They want to know about redoing a strawberry bed, and they've seen ideas about growing them in rain gutters as opposed to some other kind of a pot, and they're wondering whether they would survive in a Nebraska winter in a rain gutter, or should they use a raised bed, a feed tub, something like that.
Yeah, it's unlikely they would survive in anything that would freeze through the winter. So they're much better off in a raised bed. They could, you know, do something, if anything, if they're burying the edges of the rain gutters, cutting out the bottom, if they want that look. So some of those things to make sure that we're in contact with the ground so the roots can get into the soil.
Yeah, and I've seen some of those planters too, and they're really pretty, but I don't know that we've heard a lot of people say they've had them for multiple years. So, well, we're winding up the season out at our garden. We have ripe tomatoes, we have pumpkins, and the beans are making a comeback. Let's take a minute to check out our Backyard Farmer garden. This week in the Backyard Farmer Garden, we are reaping the benefits of quite a bit of rain, which has perked a lot of our plants right back up again. All of our pumpkins are beginning to ripen, so we should have a great harvest there. The tomatillos are splitting their skins and have the potential for making some really excellent dishes. Our stripy tomato is still stripy, but not turning any other colors. We have an awful lot of butterfly activity, and that's really an excellent thing because we haven't seen very many butterflies yet this season. We're also starting to see a bit of weed growth on the edges of the pools for our rain chain, and the rain also let us show where exactly that water is standing, so we can do a bit more grading if need be. Seeing a little bit of heat deterioration on the foliage of our horseradish. Stay tuned on that one because we are pretty darn close to a month starting in R, and when we get there, we're actually going to show you how to harvest it. That's what's happening this week in the Backyard Farmer Garden. It's time for a short break. Coming up later, we'll see what Gladys brought in for the plant of the week, and we'll have the lightning round. There's much more good gardening on Backyard Farmer right after these messages. Welcome back to Backyard Farmer. Coming up soon, we'll see some creative examples of really neat little miniature gardens, and we're also going to see Gladys's Plant of the Week. You can still phone in your questions. Just dial 1-800-676-5446. While you're doing that, we'll start the lightning round, and for those of you who are really drowning, which is very unfortunate in parts of the state, we'll hope we don't see any lightning. All right, Jeff, are you ready?
I'm ready.
We have a viewer who lost their peaches to deer, but they want to know if they can plant the pits from peaches from Colorado that they buy from the grocery store, and will they get peach trees?
Yes, they will. Yes, it works. One of the guys at work has done it and has had a lot of fun with it. So,
really?
Yeah.
Excellent. Another peach question. This is a Beatrice viewer who has a 4-year-old tree that has been planted over a sewer line, and they're wondering, should they go ahead and move it?
Well, yes and no. I guess if they think the sewer line is shallow or they're worried about having roots causing problems, then they should try to move it. I'm not sure that old of a tree if they'll be real successful, but they should give it a shot.
All right. Is it all right to eat the seeds of poppies that are regular garden poppies, cook them into things?
Yes, it is. So, and some people prefer fresh poppy seeds over the store-bought ones. So.
Excellent. Is it time to move tulips now and or plant tulips now?
It's a little early, so I would wait. I mean, we've got a month or so before you have to really worry about that.
All right. We have a viewer who got 2 crops of mulberries off their mulberry tree, and they're wondering, is that normal?
They're just lucky. I didn't know the mulberries in my neighborhood ever stopped, so.
All right, and I'm guessing whoever has a white car in that neighborhood thinks they're very unlucky. All right, are you ready, Kevin?
I bet you.
Yeah, excellent. So, is there any fall treatment for the spruce diseases that seem to be populating Nebraska?
No.
All right, it's really, really wet right now. Are there more diseases that we should expect in September than usual? And if so, what are they?
Alphabetical.
In the lightning round? My goodness, I could talk for an hour on this. Yes, a lot of the turf things. We just talked about dollar spot being something that we're kind of going to probably see for a little bit while longer because it's cool and wet. Powdery mildew on all sorts of ornamentals. Downy mildews in certain vegetables and landscape plants. Do I get more than 1 point for this?
We're also seeing tons of fire blight in apple. What's going on?
It's been a really great year for that. So typically that particular bacterium needs to infect through the flowers, but we've had a lot of hail, so it can also infect through injury wounds, which has happened. So we're seeing it a lot on our pears and our apples.
All right. What distance do you need to have between apples and cedars to avoid cedar apple rust?
It depends on which report you read, but they said anywhere between 1 mile and 5 miles.
Excellent. Nice job. Notice how he talks faster when he thinks he's not going to get very many questions in. All right, Lowell.
Yes.
You ready?
Yep.
Is fall the best time to control dandelions?
Absolutely it is.
Should we weed and feed this fall, or just feed, or just weed?
It depends on what, you should definitely fertilize here in the fall. Depends on what weed species you have, whether you add herbicides in with that.
All right. Do we do crabgrass control in the fall?
No, it's an annual. What we have right now, just live with it and plan for control next spring.
All right. Will 2,4-D take the broadleafs out of turf?
Absolutely. Here in about 6 weeks is a perfect time to start doing that.
All right. Should aeration occur now in turf?
Yeah, it's time to start renovating and improving turf, and it's a great time to do that.
All right. What do we use to kill white clover in turf?
Triclopyr or any of the three-way broadleaf mixes.
And is once a month too often to fertilize new sod?
That's way too often to fertilize new sod.
Excellent. So that was a new record for the turf guy.
I think there's some favoritism going on here tonight.
Yeah, think? All right, are you ready, Michael?
I don't know if I can follow that or not. I'll try.
So, Fred had a cicada at State Fair yesterday when we were there, and it sang loudly. Why are they still singing?
They are late this year. The cold weather this spring put things back.
All right. So we have viewers seeing big monster globs of what looks like webs in the tops of crab apples and plum and so forth. What are those?
It could be either webworms or tent caterpillars.
And what do they do about it?
And I don't think they're really going to have to be worried about it too much.
All right.
Just let it go.
So will wasps nest in trees? Especially, we have a viewer who said they have wasps in pussy willows or willows.
Paper wasps will do that, yes.
Okay. Any way to get rid of them, short of?
Remove them. I mean, you can remove them by hand. Some people use chemical control. You just need to be careful.
Yeah. Okay. How do people keep paper wasps from continuing to build under the soffits of their house?
Remove the nests. That seems to deter them. Obviously, get on them right away first thing in the spring when they come out of the winter after they're hibernating.
Excellent. So just in case our viewers had no idea what was going on, this is Lowell's last lightning round, and yes, indeed, the deck was stacked. We kind of figured it out. We were hoping that he would just say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. All right, Jeff, what did Gladys bring us today?
She brought us two unusual plants, something a little different. The purple plant here is a hyacinth bean. So it's a vine. It's not hardy in Nebraska. It's a perennial in Africa where they eat them. So she said hers gets up to 20 feet long in a year. Likes full sun, damp soil. And she said the pods don't hold color quite as well in the wintertime. But it sounds like, really, it's a beautiful plant. Looks like it'd be a lot of fun to grow. I'll have to try that. Then the white one here is an Nicotiana flowering tobacco, and this one is Sylvestris. And Kim was just talking before the show how the leaves are quite large on this, right? So, and it's a big plant, 5 feet tall, something like this. So this sounds like this would be kind of a fun plant to have. But like you were mentioning, you don't want to grow this around really your vegetable garden. So keep it away from your tomatoes and some of those plants. So that's one of those things you might want to watch. But otherwise, it's unusual and kind of fun to have.
And very, very fragrant at night.
So, and it blooms at night, right?
Blooms at night.
Okay.
Yeah. So we say thanks to Gladys as always. And if our viewers want to see one of those hyacinth beans, we actually have one in the Backyard Farmer Garden this year too. Quite pretty, and the bean beetles like it just as well as they like the other ones. So,
Of course.
yeah. All right, Michael, you get the next picture. This is a viewer in Wayne. They're picking tomatoes that look like that. They're not fully red yet, having to throw them away. Do we have some lovely insect that has made them a food of choice?
Looking at the pictures, this damage didn't happen the last several days because we can see it's all black and brown around the holes. I suspect we had a caterpillar that did this, possibly the variegated cutworm. It'll come up and make those kind of holes into it. There are some other caterpillars that could do it as well, but I'm suspicious it's the variegated cutworm.
All right. Anything they can do about it maybe next year if this year's too late?
If they have a lot of mulch around the plants, that's where the caterpillars will hide during the day, and they'll come up at night to feed. So sometimes if they have a leaf mulch or a grass mulch, those things could be somewhat good for actually having cutworms to hide there during the day. Just keep on top of it, watch it, and that's probably. There are some insecticides that could be used, but you don't want to use them unnecessarily.
All right, excellent. Lowell, this is a what is this weed and what is the best way to eradicate it question.
Okay. That would be ground ivy, also known as creeping Charlie by some people. It's a perennial, very difficult to remove out of turf situations. A lot of times it likes shaded areas, so from a cultural standpoint, if they can provide some more light in there, it'd be better to make the turf more competitive. It is a perennial weed, and again, when we're talking about perennial weeds in turf, herbicides are probably about, they are the best option for control. And if we use something with a three-way broadleaf mix that contains dicamba or triclopyr, here in probably 4 to 6 weeks, and then be persistent each fall with that, and over 3 or 4 years, they can really kind of start shrinking it back.
And then overseed and thicken up that turf.
Thicken up the turf, good fertility program on the turf.
All that good stuff. All right, excellent, thanks. So another mater question here, Kevin. This is a viewer who has Early Girl Big Boy and beefsteaks. Every tomato they plucked had this kind of odd little brownish spot on the bottom. Cut into them and there's nothing inside, so it's not internal blossom end rot. They say the tomatoes are all from the same 3 plants. It's in a raised bed with compost and black soil.
Well, I don't think it's a pathogen, which is a good thing. I think it's more of a developmental thing. I don't know if it's nutritional or if those particular varieties just don't do well here, or something was lacking while they were developing. The thing to be concerned about is maybe post-harvest care. Those kinds of superficial wounds, I think you can peel off and then eat the rest of the flesh, but those superficial wounds give way to other types of fungi and rotting bacteria. So, post-harvest care is important at this point. You don't want to store them somewhere and have them rot, so process them right away if you can. I think if you peel them, they should be edible.
All right, excellent. So at least it's not blossom end rot.
Nope, and yeah, so next year, maybe pick a different variety
or manage it differently.
Right.
There we go. All right. Jeff, this is an Omaha viewer. This tree has been in their front yard for about 3 years. It was planted, as a part of the development, about 14 feet tall. The trunk has some damage that looks an awful lot like a crack or a sun scald kind of a thing. The apparent wound is at least 15 inches up the tree. They wonder if they should be concerned with this particular one. So what do we see here that's a no-no?
Well, you know, obviously it's a lovely little rock retaining wall around that that's much too small for the tree. And, you know, kind of in the neighborhood, it looked like the builder had put several of those around several of the trees. When you look closely at the picture, some are bigger, which would make more sense. And I think that's some of our issues there. To me, that wound looks like we have a root that has died on that side of the stem, and that's what's kind of killed that side of the bark there and all that. So, you know, to say that that tree won't do well, it looks like the wound is healing. That's a good sign, but I think we need to look at disassembling that lovely rock retaining wall and make it larger if you want to keep that and give that root zone some more room.
All right, and keep that soil away from the trunk.
Right.
Yeah, all right, excellent. Well, just because you don't have a big yard is no reason not to enjoy gardening. Earlier we showed you some good color combinations for containers. Right now we're going to look at creating a garden on a very small scale. Here's Ron Harvey from Urban Trails Gardens here in Lincoln to show us miniature fairy gardens.
Miniature gardening has been around for hundreds of years. It's just recently gained popularity in the United States. Probably I'd say the last 3 or 4 years. It's really caught on as a pastime hobby for lots of people. It's popular for lots of reasons. It's basically a miniature landscape, so I think it's a lot easier for someone to maintain than, like, say, a huge big garden, but yet they get the features of having an entire garden. Most of miniature gardening is done in containers, and I like to use containers that are low. Generally, they look better in, like low bowls. But there are people that do the miniature gardening in the actual landscape, and they'll use dwarf conifers and things that will actually stay outside in the wintertime, and then they'll bring back their nice little garden furniture and stuff in the springtime after the snow's gone. But miniature gardening is actually a form of bonsai, because if you don't do pruning and stuff on your little trees and your shrubs and things like that, they'll become way overgrown. They'll outgrow the space that you have for it. So actually a lot of the trees that you use for tropical bonsai are used in miniature gardening. The containers can go in just about any type of lighting. It depends on the type of plants you choose for the lighting. We use succulents like this here for ones, but then they need to be in the wintertime in like a south or a west window, sitting right in the window. But we also have begonias that do well in the miniature gardens, and those work well in, like, say, an east window. Some of my favorite plants to use as trees in miniature gardens is the Ficus Tulittle. It works great for bonsai and being pruned on. Another one for shade, I like the Partita begonia. It develops a really big trunk over time as you prune on it. The trunk keeps getting larger. I like to use succulents like the jade plant, works good as a tree. I also like to use some things that flower. One of my favorites would be like a goldfish plant because it blooms almost continuously. And also we have a little creeping ground cover that has tiny purple flowers called angel tears, and it also is wonderful for miniature gardening.
Just like the fall container feature we showed you at Earl May earlier, this is a chance to enjoy your gardening and use your imagination. All right, Michael, no imagination needed on this. This is a Hastings, Nebraska viewer who sent us this picture of this beautiful thing. We know what it is. You want to talk a little bit about what it is and what to do about them?
Well, I don't know there's anything we need to do about these things. This is a Chinese mantid, a very beneficial insect to have out and about. Obviously, this is an adult because it has wings. It will be probably, if it's a female, will be laying an egg case here pretty soon with lots of eggs for next year. But they're beneficial. They eat lots of grasshoppers and other insects that they catch. So you don't see them every place, but it's nice to see that they're around.
And we're seeing more and more, I think, in Nebraska. Yeah, which is very good. All right, Lowell, this is a what is it and is it edible question.
Okay.
And our viewer here says the blossoms smell a little bit like the edible version of marigold.
Okay. Well, this is a really robust sample, but I think it's Spanish needles, which is in the Asteraceae family. I believe it's an annual. This one looks like it's really growing pretty robustly out there. It's a weed, and if there's not too many of them, I would just pull them out here. And actually, the needles part of this, the seed head on here, we actually have a little sample on this, but if you pull these apart, they have two kind of sharp little ends on here, and this is one of those things, if you walk by it, it will catch on your clothing and stuff like that, and seeds can get transported around that way. So if there's not too many of them, I would just pull them up and get rid of them before the seeds drop in that area. I'm not sure that it's edible. I don't know why I would want to eat that, so I would just stay away from that part of it.
Yeah, there are certain things that eat the marigold instead, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You have a question about a crabapple, Kevin. This is a viewer that says the tree has leaves browning up there on the outermost edges and on the branches. What do we think is going on in the...
It could be a couple different things. Those particular trees are susceptible to cankers, but when we see that particular photo there, I'd like to think more either apple scab or apple rust. And it's hard to tell just from the picture, but the treatment is pretty much the same. It's a fungal disease. It's a leaf disease. It looks like either apple scab or apple rust. Residue management is important for this particular disease, so you want to rake and clean up all of the leaves that fall in the fall. There are some fungicides that are available for treatment, but you need to apply them in the spring when the leaves are emerging from the tree. So you would want to wait on something like that. But it typically depends from year to year on the severity, and the tree's not necessarily going to die unless you have chronic exposure. So you have that disease showing up year after year after year, then you can start seeing some branch dieback. But typically it's something that doesn't warrant a treatment unless you're trying to produce apples or something like that.
So if they can do a resistant variety too, if they're replanting.
Yes, exactly. That's a great way to preventively treat for this disease. If you're going to plant an apple, there are resistant varieties out there, so check into that for sure.
Excellent. All right. Jeff, this is a viewer who sent us some interesting pictures of carrots.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of things growing legs, the potato didn't, but apparently the carrots did.
Right.
And they want to know if there's anything they can do to prevent it next year.
And actually, I happened to dig some carrots in my own garden tonight, and I did earlier this week. And earlier this week, I found carrots like that. So it's not that unusual, and those are called forked carrots. So say that fast 3 times. But these carrots here, you can see what it is a meristematic tissue at the end. As it hits something with some resistance, will fork or change direction. And so that's all it is. So it's nothing that's going to cause you any problems or anything else like that. So it's just fine.
So fluff your soil.
Fluff your soil, yeah. So if there's clay or rocks or anything in there, something hard in there, a piece of bark even would be enough to cause you some problems.
Yeah. Excellent. And those carrots that came out of your garden look pretty darn.
Yeah, they look good. I tried to find one that had done that. I found a bunch the other day, but I couldn't tonight, so.
All right. Excellent. Well, we have a handful of announcements of things going on in the gardening world. And let's start with food and football going together. Now is the time to think about your game day recipes. NET is going to collect those favorite tailgate recipes to create a really special cookbook. So you can send those tailgating recipes to tail-gate-recipes at netnebraska.org. We also have Lincoln Rose Society Annual Rose Show, September 14th, 1 to 4 at Auld Recreation Center. Submissions from 7 to 10. We have a number on the screen for people who want to do that. And we're hoping that those people who want to submit those roses have not had them attacked by Japanese beetles. And tonight is Lowell's last show with Backyard Farmer. So we certainly want to say we appreciate his time and effort helping us answer those turf and weed questions. Good luck, best wishes, and yes, you can go out on a winning lightning round.
Yeah,
That's the real gift from the panel. Let him win. All right, but you're not finished yet. We still have a
all right.
answer. Okay, let's see here, Michael. This is an Omaha viewer that has an ash. Supposedly has borers and needs a treatment that they've been quoted at about a $250 price tag every single year. Don't know what kind of borer it is, but she got the impression it was emerald ash borer. So you want to nip that one in the emerald bud?
As far as I know, emerald ash borer does not occur in Nebraska as of today.
Yep.
East of us, southeast of us, yes, but Nebraska, no. If they have borers already in a tree, treating it is not going to do much good because they're already past the areas where you can get control. And the borers we have that attack ash in Nebraska, such as the red-headed ash borer, they're attracted to trees that are already under stress. And very different than what the emerald ash borer would do. That seems, the price seems somewhat exorbitant to me. So, and trying to control them when they're in the tree, it's more preventive than a cause here.
Swallow the borer. In other words, don't write that check, don't treat that tree, right? We'll let people know when emerald ash borer is. We will let you know. You will get the blitz. So don't treat for it now. All right, let's see. How about an Oxford viewer that has crabgrass in their buffalo grass near grapevines? Just to sweeten that pot.
Near grapevine.
They also want to control the crabgrass now, and of course grapes are very sensitive to 2,4-D and dicamba.
Yeah.
She's wondering if drive is an option, but again, timing on that.
It's all about timing on that. We're pretty late in the season to try and control crabgrass. A lot of that crabgrass is actually put on seeds, and it's probably dropped quite a few seeds out there. Applying drive is an option on younger crabgrass. They would probably get pretty good control with that, but unfortunately, they're probably realistically looking at a good pre-emergence program next year, and then using something like drive or tenacity to clean up any crabgrass that might come through. Because if it produces a lot of seed, there's going to be a lot of seed there next year, so they might want to be fairly aggressive with pre and post management next year.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Lowell. Kevin, we actually had a picture that was fairly similar to this 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's butterfly bush, full sun south side, which is conditions they like, but the leaves appear to have a mosaic pattern. Are you familiar with any mosaic viruses of butterfly bush?
I'm not, but there certainly could be. Certainly could be. I really wouldn't worry about it at all. It might be a little unsightly, so I guess if you really don't like it, you could pull those bushes out of there. It definitely could be. It could be a virus. It could be some kind of weird genetic type of flecking too. But if it's a virus, again, it's not going to really hurt the plant. It's just going to make it look kind of funky. And again, there's no curative or treatment for viral diseases. You can plant butterfly bush in that same spot if you do really want to remove it. But again, it's not going to hurt the bush. So. Enjoy nature's wondrous pageantry, if I can rip off Fred.
Or whatever the pathological version is. All right. Jeff, this is a Hastings viewer who has ewes and wants to know when the best time is to prune them.
I guess I would look at early in the spring or after the initial flush of growth in the springtime. If they need to do some pruning now, if they've got it over a sidewalk or it's near an entrance, a lot of times we'll have some of that. They can do some of that work now, but we don't want to do a lot of pruning this time of year, so I would wait till next spring.
All right, thanks, Jeff. We have a Grand Island viewer, Michael, who has apples in their yard, apple trees. They're wondering if worms that bother apples will migrate from one apple to an undamaged, healthy one.
Generally, the worms that attack an apple are just going to stay on that one apple. They're not going to move to another apple unless they have to be maybe really contiguous and touching each other. It could go from one to the other, but just to go down the stem is not going to probably happen.
They're not considering that apple stem as a buffet.
No.
Okay, all right. Lowell, last question.
Okay.
Last one. And this is somebody who has garlic chives, they suspect.
Okay.
They've ended up spreading into the neighbor's yard. They've used Roundup, they've pulled, everything is totally ineffective. Is there anything, and again, they have small children, so there's a concern about that. Is there anything that will keep them at bay?
Well, I mean, Roundup's actually not terribly effective on them, and it's if you have desirable turf, it's gonna kill that off as well. So, again, being persistent with something like a growth regulator herbicide, getting good coverage on that is critical, and right time of year. So, fall applications, spring applications if needed. Avoid summer applications.
All right. So, kind of the you got it. You're going to have it. Don't take care of it in the season when you shouldn't.
The weeds are persistent, so you got to be persistent to get rid of them.
All right, thank you, Lowell. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for Backyard Farmer tonight. We want to say thanks to our panel for another great show. Thanks to Lowell for the seasons. Thanks to everybody who submitted questions and pictures, and thanks to our State Fair audience yesterday, all 250 of you. Helping us on the phones tonight, we had Master Gardeners, Gladys Jurink, George Edgar, Melissa Hacker, John Cariato, and Kate Gall. From Finke Gardens was Luann Finke. Next time on Backyard Farmer, Jeff Culbertson will be taking us on a tour of Maxwell Arboretum here on East Campus. We'll check out the Yiter Garden, and we'll hear about all the wonderful trees. We'll also be showing you harvesting of that hot root vegetable, horseradish. Thanks for watching. Good night, good gardening, and we'll see you all next week right here on Backyard Farmer.